Jets host the Texans tomorrow night. Deadline to follow next week. Will the Jets be sellers or buyers? What is going on, everybody? Thanks for stopping in Wednesday show. Matt, we've done it again. We are 0-4, dude. We are the cause of the losing streak.
I think so. I think we just got to retire this. It was a fun 4-week run, but that's the end of the line for Buffalo Jet fan and Matt O'Leary doing a stream here.
A brutal, man. Pierre just jumping in, joining as a new member. Really appreciate that, man. Obviously, as you can tell, no, I'm not doing a Robert Saleh impersonation. I have a cold, so thank you guys for bearing with me. But Matt, man, the trade deadline is already here, and I can't believe we're asking this question, but it does beg the question, especially if they fall to 2-7, if the Jets will be sellers about 3 weeks after they were buyers to get in Reddick and Adams. Do you think that there is a world in which the Jets start stripping this team for parts and start to look forward to the future, or are they too far gone where they're just going to ride it out for better or worse?
So I think they should sell off some pieces that aren't here long term. You have guys on expiring deals like DJ Reed or Tyler Conklin, and there's a few other examples. Mike Williams is a name that's been in trade talks forever, it feels like, and I am totally good with them selling off some pieces here and trying to get it right in 2025 with whoever's going to be in here and making decisions. But I'm not convinced that Joe Douglas is doing anything. Just because I don't know if he's still employed by this team or not. And I don't know if he would be really all that motivated if he does have the capacity to make trades, to trade pieces away if he's not going to be here in 3 months. So my expectation is that it's going to be a very quiet trade deadline for the Jets, but my preference would be for them to move off a couple of pieces. I'm not saying like a big name like a trade Sauce or trade Garrett or anything like that, but anyone who's on an expiring deal that could leave in free agency, I'm good shipping them off.
So if I were to tell you, if I were to put the line at 1.5 trades for the Jets, buy or sell, where are you going? 1.5.
I would go under. I think
Same.
only Mike Williams gets traded. I think that's the only thing they do.
I agree. I think they will only sell maybe one piece. I think that as Jet fans, we can understand if they do lose tomorrow, which if you've been a fan of this team long enough and you can't see the Jets beating the Texans tomorrow, I don't know what to tell you. This is the absolute kind of game that they win to give you a sliver of hope and start. Once you start peeking at Tankathon, then they start losing their draft pick stock. This is absolutely a game that the New York Jets win all the time. They were on I think a 5-game losing streak last year when they blew out the Texans at home with Zach Wilson. They are 1.5-point favorites. Yeah, I think as Jet fans, we can all agree if they fall to 2-7, this season is toast, and it's time to look towards next season. But I just think Woody has too much pride, and I think he's the one making the decisions now. It's a weird spot with Woody and JD because I don't really know what's going on, man. On one hand, Woody comes out and says it's the best roster he's had in 25 years, which seems like to me he's insinuating that the issue is more coaching than talent, which I think is probably true. But I think you have to have a conversation with Joe Douglas on whether or not he's going to be here next year before you let a trade deadline come and go, don't you?
Yeah, that's the tough part in all of this is not only is Joe Douglas potentially going to be fired because of the job that he's done, but he also doesn't have a contract for next year. So he's not working under the assumption that he's going to be the one who gets to make all these decisions with the roster going into 2025. So it is a weird spot. And I get like they have a short week this week. So maybe you don't have that conversation now, but the trade deadline's rapidly approaching. Like it's going to be here a lot sooner than I think some people realize. So they desperately need to come up with some sort of plan here. But my fear is, unfortunately, I don't think they do that. I think they kind of just ride the course. As I said, maybe just sell off like a Mike Williams. You get a conditional 6th-round pick and call it a day, and then just ride this thing to wherever it's going to go, which is probably a 6 or 7 win team.
That's depressing, but it's probably pretty accurate. I mean, DJ Reed is the one to me where if you're really not going to resign him, I think he could fetch you something pretty decent. The rest of them, like Mike Williams, you're talking about a late round pick swap, but I don't know, man. DJ Reed is nah, well, I guess it ties into this question because I think this is it's not as crazy as it seems. Because Richard says if Detroit calls and asks for Sauce and Reddick, do you consider it? Now they're not going to trade Sauce at the deadline. That's just way too big of a trade. Teams don't trade those kind of pieces at the deadline. You have to figure in an extension, all that stuff. But if a new GM comes in who did not draft any of these guys, I do think he takes a hard look at some of these young pieces and says, okay, I like Garrett Wilson. I'm going to pay him. Brees is a really big weapon. Maybe I'm going to pay him. Maybe I'll wait and see on Jermaine AVT. And then takes a look at Sauce Gardner and says, if I don't want to pay a corner 25 million just on principle, that could be a belief of a new GM, and maybe you can get a first plus something else for Sauce. I I don't know. I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy that that could be a thing if there's a new GM.
No, no, absolutely not. I think that is probably likely. Anytime you see someone come in, and not just Sauce in particular, but the new
Right.
person comes in and sees like, okay, these are my assets that I have, and I can either get more by trading this guy or I'm going to pay this guy, and you have to make those tough decisions. And Sauce is pretty valuable. I think someone would happily pay Sauce Gardner and give up a first round pick plus. We saw, I mean, the Jets were benefited from this one, but the Jamal Adams trade,
Yeah.
they got 2 first round picks and a third round pick. I don't know if they would get that exact trade package again, but if you can get more than just a singular first round pick for one of these guys, or Sauce Gardner, I think you have to consider it with the work that needs to be done. So not something that could happen really in season, but is absolutely going to be on the table from January through March when they're making these decisions.
Right. And we'll see how Sauce plays the rest of the year. Obviously, he's been a two-time All-Pro his first 2 years. It's historic. So it's been a good return on investment on the pick. It's not a referendum on the pick. Obviously, he's awesome. If they do extend him, I'd most likely be happy about it. But I it's also a financial thing too, where you trade him away and then some teams gonna pay him 25 million. So if you could get cheaper and then restart a rookie clock somewhere else, maybe at a more premium position, especially like if you're in a scheme that's not gonna move their corners and he's not taking the ball away. Now I know he doesn't get thrown out a lot, but if he doesn't have good ball skills and now his tackling is kind of suspect, like you have to wonder could like 25 plus $1 million on a a league with a salary cap go further somewhere else. I think it's a question that a new GM, if there is one, might have to ask. Reddick is weird, man, because does anybody want him? Like he's
I
already
don't think
injured.
so.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
think our bet is made with Red. I think our bet is made with Reddick and Adams too. I think on principle they don't double trade Adams.
No, and I saw the rework deal earlier today too. So I feel like he's probably going to be here in 2025 with Aaron Rodgers is my assumption. Not that it's the absolute best thing in the world or exactly what I'm rooting for, but I agree with both Devontae Adams and Hassan Reddick. I don't think the Jets flip either one of those guys. Reddick, I just don't know who is trading for him. Number one, we only have a 1 game sample, but in that
Right.
1 game, it's not like he did anything great and has an injury. So good luck trying to move that.
Yeah, and he's already chirping at Bill Belichick like a burner account on Twitter. I'm like, dude, you played 1 game. When we lost, you couldn't even wait until like you had one pressure. Unreal, man. What a disaster that has turned out to be. Yeah, I did see that restructure, and it's not a guarantee that he's back, but why would they do that if they're planning on trading him? You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense to me. And this ties into this comment here. We will run it back. Sauce needs better coaching. Aaron needs to speed it up. So that'll be the question, especially if we lose tomorrow. I'm really hoping we don't, man. And until the team is mathematically eliminated, I hope I root for as many meaningful games as possible. One as a fan, and then two, bro. It's not even Halloween. We're doing off-season talk. Oh my God, kill me. We're gonna be doing mock drafts and freaking Thanksgiving. It's gonna be brutal. But if they lose tomorrow, then even the most optimistic Jet fan is gonna have to call it what it is on the season. And now it's do you run it back with Aaron Rodgers. So we have a lot more games to go to get more information, but do you have a hunch leaning one way or the other if either Aaron Rodgers is back in 2025 or if you'd prefer him to be?
So I think he is back in 2025 because I do kind of believe what Woody Johnson said a few weeks ago. In Woody's mind, he really believes that this is like an extremely talented roster, and there is a lot of talent here. I don't want to discredit what he said a few weeks ago. I just think maybe it was a little overblown. But I do think that Aaron Rodgers is back because I think Woody wants him back. But I also think Rodgers wants to come back. I don't think he'd want to go out this way. I'm okay if Rodgers comes back, but under the scenario where he is not the number 2 guy in the organization under Woody Johnson. Like I really, really want them to be in a spot where they hire either a head of football operations person and that hires the GM and coach, or you have a GM who's actually in there making the decisions, and the coach reports to the GM and so on. I just don't want to be in a spot where they are right now with Rodgers. And I would still consider drafting a quarterback if you're picking, in the top 10 of this year's draft, and having that person sit behind Aaron Rodgers and company. So, yeah, I'm okay with he comes back, but if he doesn't want to on those terms, then like I don't really care at that point.
I think that if Aaron Rodgers' body holds up reasonably well throughout the year and he doesn't suffer like another catastrophic injury, I think he'll want to play football in 2025 because, like you said, I don't think he's going to want to go out with that whimper and have all of his doubters victory lapping him. And then my Jet fan PTSD remembers what Brett Favre looked like after he was hurt with the Jets and then went on to Minnesota Vikings and had like one of the top 5 years of his career. So I'm like, oh, wouldn't that just be so fitting? But really, like, has Rodgers lit the world on fire? No, but he's still going to have a top 10 season in Jets history, probably comfortably as a quarterback if he plays all the games. And you're already paying him a good amount of money next year. And there's probably not going to be a better quarterback that you can get. And even if you did, well, you're going to cut Rodgers and then sign another veteran. And then you're going to be allocating like $60 million to the quarterback position to have most likely mediocre quarterback play. So Rodgers is probably going to be your best bet as long as he keeps playing at a decent level, which he is right now. And then, like you said, it doesn't preclude you from taking a young quarterback. And Rodgers is at the point now where you're not building your future around him anymore. I think when he first came here, it made sense to really make him comfortable. And you got Hackett was here. I know some people still want to pretend that the Jets would have pursued Nate Hackett. Look, guys, let me break some news for you, okay? Nate Hackett and Aaron Rodgers talked before Nate Hackett took the job. It wasn't tampering at the time because Nate Hackett wasn't hired. Nate Hackett could have went on a beach somewhere and tipped Mai Tais and gotten his full paycheck from the Broncos. You think he was coming back to save his job, to save his reputation, to coach Zach Wilson? You're out of your gourd. That was a thing. Rodgers, they knew Rodgers had this plan for months. I will die on that. But you did all that stuff for him. Okay, makes sense. But and you probably, I think last year, Matt, even if they had a top 3 pick last year, I don't think they would have taken a quarterback. I don't think they would have taken Jaden Daniels or Drake May. Right? I think they still would have taken somebody to help Rodgers or traded out and got more picks. But now you're in a scenario where you cannot do that. Where you're like, okay, Rodgers, you're here. Your last year, we're gonna ride it out with you, but you're gonna have to be the quarterback. The coach is gonna have to be the coach. The GM's gonna have to be the GM, and that's gonna have to be how it goes. And he's gonna be at a point in his career where no other team is gonna offer him anything different. So I think for him, it'll probably make sense to want to be back for the Jets too, most likely.
And it's not like he has a ton of choices too, by the way. Like
Right.
you were saying there, like it's not like all these teams are going to be lining up to sign up for Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback and GM.
Correct. I mean, the Jets were probably the only team that was willing to do it, 2 years ago.
Right. And because they were so desperate.
Right. Oh man. What do you? Oh, this is gonna be so now that what gets really weird now is if you're one more year of Rodgers, you're kind of in limbo now because that's weird for a new GM and head coach who probably wants a clean slate. And this is where I know it's like a meme. I would not be shocked if they interview Rex, dude. And I know it's like so WFAN level take, but if a new GM comes in or if it's still Douglas, and they decide because the first decision you kind of have to decide is if you want Rodgers or not. That has to be one of the first decisions you make. And if they decide yes, and you just want like a rent a coach to come in and like rah rah, let's stick with Rodgers, let's win 9 games, make a wild card, see what the F happens. And you have a guy in Rex who number one wants the job. because Ben Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury, and Mike Rabel, do they want the job? I don't know. Rex Ryan does. That's already one check he has. Check number one, wants the job. Check number two is adored by the owner. He got a game ball and a Gatorade bath for going 8-8. So Rex Ryan to the New York Jets in 2025. What percent crazy is that? Is that like just 0% chance happening, or could you see it?
No, I could absolutely see it. I don't want it to happen, but I absolutely could see that happening for all the reasons you just laid out. The owner loves the guy too. He wants to be here. There's a chance that, he might sacrificial lamb might be tough, but like rent the coach 1 year. We're going to go one last ride kind of thing. And I don't know what kind of, candidate you're going to get otherwise in this spot. That's not what I'm rooting for to happen. I love Rex Ryan for what he did in 2009 and 2010, my two favorite years as a Jets fan. But I think some fans kind of forget how things ended for him here, and that he wasn't very good in Buffalo either. And that's 15 years ago when he was last successful. So I'm not there on it, but I would not be surprised if at some point in January I'm making a video about the Jets hiring Rex Ryan.
Yeah, it's very polar too. The responses to it are very either F yeah or F no to Rex. Um, if we got the tweet, I would like laugh and be kind of excited, but that's just because I'm a Jet fan and Rex Ryan it's a nostalgia thing. But dude, there's not a lot of, I mean, he's been out of the league, what, 8, 9 years, man. Is any profession, any high level profession, being out of the game 8, 9 years is really, really tough. But, and again, another defensive minded head coach. So, I mean, I guess if the options are Rex Ryan or Jeff Ulbrich, then sure, Rex Ryan. But I like to circle the pool of options before we spin back to Rex. But I think that I think he could get an interview, which is kind of wild that that's a talking point here before Halloween on this season, man. I think that I don't know. Jeff Ulbrich to me is not it. I don't want to be too harsh after 3 games, but there's no way.
No, yeah, it's been a real tough go for Jeff Ulbrich. He feels like he's in over his head. He's still trying to call the defensive plays too while doing all this, and he was put in a really tough spot. I was hoping for like the same thing the Jets were, that it would spark this team and try to light a fire under him, but that has not been the case, unfortunately. Yeah, I feel for him, but he's going to be a DC somewhere next year. I don't anticipate him getting any head coaching interviews after this kind of performance that we've seen, unless something really crazy happens. But I would not be surprised to see him on some staff as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I think he was linebackers before that, so he'll definitely find work, but seems a little bit outmatched. This is a name I've seen a lot too. Like we go right to Crazy Town. Now I'm seeing that we're gonna have John Gruden and Dion's kid from Colorado State. Like that's the combination that's gonna take us to the promised land. Chucky, John Gruden. Geez, isn't he like he's making very strange TikToks? I don't know that. Have you seen those?
I unfortunately have. They're like some sort of fever dream. I don't like when they come up in my feed, but I've seen them.
Why start the coach talk when we're going wild card? So Dak Jets is not ready to give up, Matt. What do you say?
God bless him. I mean, I did the shot that they were talking about, mixing in the the Cajun pepper. Well, I don't even know what I did today. So that's gonna affect the circulation, and the cayenne pepper. There we go. Is affecting the circulation. So I said that's the beginning of the 11-6 run. So why not us?
Yeah. Come on, Rodgers. I'm sure you can find something a little bit stronger than that one. All the stuff he's ingested, that's the one that does the magic trick. A little bit of cayenne pepper. Oh my goodness. Yeah, man, Gruden, dude. Well, the thing is, it's not lost on me that there is a little bit of beggars can't be choosers element to this. So I'll try and keep an open mind. If it does come to the coaching search, if our optimistic friend here isn't correct and they don't win out and make a wild card, but. I mean, John Gruden, I actually looked it up, and the last time he made the playoffs as a head coach was the year that Braylon Allen was born. So not ideal. And I also think he's either suing or being sued by the NFL and clearly losing his mind. Now, I mean, maybe that's what we need. I don't know. Maybe that's what we need, but it seems like probably not the best idea. I know that you did a video talking about another former head coach, not named Rex Ryan, that should be a candidate. Who's that?
Yeah, so not so much for a head coaching position, but I don't hate the idea of Pete Carroll being involved as some sort of advisor. I mentioned also in that video Eric Mangini, but that would never happen because of how things ended with Woody Johnson in 2008. But I just always thought that he had a good eye for talent, and those Rex Ryan years were built off the backs of the '06, '07, and 2008 draft. But for me, Pete Carroll, like coached in this league for a really long time, had a lot of success. I think it was 12 playoff seasons in 18 years, something like that. I just feel like they need an adult in the room who could come in and be like, all right, this is what we have to do to get this team back on track and get the right people in here. And if Woody Johnson would listen to him or listen to whoever he hires, really, and just let that person kind of build the infrastructure of the team. I don't want him. I think he's 73 or 74. I don't think
Yeah,
he's best used on the sideline, but
right.
players have always loved him. He's well respected around the league. I think that's something that the Jets could actually benefit from in their organization, where with something like Rex, yeah, the players loved him, but that kind of feels more of like that feels like more of the circus. And I think the Jets could benefit from getting out of the circus tent.
Yeah, that's becoming a popular um, suggestion now on Jets interwebs. Pete Carroll as some sort of president of football operations or something that is either like above or equal to or oversees the GM. I guess would really hire the GM, because the problem is you don't want Woody Johnson. You want Woody Johnson to make as few decisions as possible. You want him to sign the checks and take these little pictures of his chain and all that, and then just leave everything else to the football people. Pete Carroll, that'd be awesome, because no, he doesn't have front office experience, but the dude knows football, and more importantly, the dude knows everybody in the damn league and is revered around the league. So the networking ability there would be the number one thing to get people in the right place. Because I did a dig through the Jets front office, just looking at their staff, and we just always say JD, but really it's a front office, and there are like 20 plus names of people who do something, a staff that is related to football, something between scouting and player development, all that. So that's a whole team that you would want. Pete would probably pick the GM and then hire those people along with them. People who are still here, you have to have the office space conversation where you sit them down and say, what is it exactly that you do here? And it needs to be completely gutted. And I don't think Woody, number one, has the capability to do that, or number two, even it's a tedious task. Like, this is not going to be a fun job. This is going to be roll your sleeves up and really get in there. And Woody is not going to want any part of that. He's going to want to slap. He's like the meme where there's like a giant leak coming out and you slap the duct tape on it. That's his philosophy to everything. So I'm with you, man. Pete Carroll, that would be freaking awesome, man. I mean, this team is paying, and people bring up money too. Is Woody going to pay the money? I'm like, dude, we're paying Hassan Reddick and Devontae Adams $1 million a week each in a mostly gone season. I would, dude, pay Pete Carroll $10 million a year on a 4 or 5 year deal to come fix this team. What could be more valuable than that? Like a mediocre starting guard?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I don't know. To me, the biggest thing is you, and you kind of said it too. You want to take the decision for hiring the GM out of Woody Johnson's hands, and like it just feels like there's too many shortcuts. And I'm not even necessarily saying like with the Rodgers trade or just anything like that, but just in his history as the owner of this team, just a lot of questionable decisions. Him getting involved in meddling, I don't think is worthy, but. Yeah, I know Richard Todd here is saying that he's like 73, but I don't really care. He's still very much so with it and active and has been in the game for a really long time.
He's younger than the last two presidents.
Another valid point as well. Yeah, and you're not signing him for 10 years. If you can come and work here for 5 years and get this thing going in the right direction, I think that's all we really care about.
Yeah, and I would be willing to bet that if you took my blood work and compared it to Pete Carroll's, he's probably better. He's probably doing better than I am. He is a young, spry 73, and it's more of a I think the age isn't as much of a factor if you're talking about a front office role rather than being on the beat and on the pulse of a locker room composed of mostly like guys in their 20s. I think that's not as big of a deal for Pete. And I think he wants to work, man. He's talked, he's got that itch, he wants to coach. I mean, dude, if it comes down to it, I wouldn't write off Pete Carroll as a coach of the New York Jets. Like, would I rather have 73-year-old Pete Carroll or some random first time head coach that isn't even really a top prospect? I'd probably go with Pete Carroll and then give him even more input. Like, that's not ideal because you're stretching him kind of thin there, but I would say Pete Carroll involved in any capacity in the Jets, I would not be opposed to it in the least if he is willing to come back. What was he? How long was he here? It was very brief.
194. That was it.
Oh my gosh! Before that was probably, well, you were probably born in '94, around there, right?
No, I'm a 95 baby, so I missed it by a year.
Gosh, you missed Pete Carroll. That's why he left, and that's why we're 0-5 because of this show, man. It's cursed. I don't think we get a rookie head coach no matter what. We can't have a guy learning on the job. We need experience to work with Rodgers. What do you think?
Okay, so I have one exception to this rule. As exciting of a coaching prospect as someone like Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick or Joe Brady, someone like that, that's not really the direction that I would like to go. Todd Monken, though, because he is someone who is a little bit older and has more experience and was a head coach in college football, albeit a long time ago. And he kind of has that, like, I don't give a F narrative here, or attitude rather. I would be more willing to bet that he isn't going to get pushed around in the New York market than some 35-year-old that got coffees for Sean McVay for a couple of years and then ends up getting thrown into the head coaching position. So Monken's really the only exception to that rule for me on rookie head coaches.
Yeah, Monken is. Yeah, he's been around the block. I don't know how he would feel about him being in the interview cycle with the Jets previously and them turning him down. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I would love for the Jets to interview him again. He's shown he could be successful in a wide range of circumstances. And yeah, dude, I mean, if Ben Johnson or Cliff Kingsbury want to coach the New York Jets, I don't think any Jet fan is turning their nose at them. But I do think that this team needs more than savvy play calling. It needs that, but it needs more than that. I think it needs a grown up, and it needs somebody who can be a part of a culture builder, as an extension of Pete Carroll. And I know we talked before. Stefanski is a guy that we both like. I think Cleveland would be crazy to let him go. They saddled him with that brutal trade. Vrabel, who I don't love. Vrabel, I think that he's ending in Tennessee, and then there were the reports that he's, for lack of better words, kind of an asshole. But I'd rather have an asshole than a complete nice guy, though. I would rather have a guy who just tells it like it is, who will, like, dude, if Mike Vrabel was coaching this team, Greg Z would not have been kicking for the past 2 games. There's no way. He would have went to the front office and he would have made sure we got a new kicker. That to me is such a microcosm, and I know it's like no one wants to beat a dead horse with the kicker, but a professional football team that fancies itself a contender can just go week in and week out and not even add one to the practice squad. Like not even add an insurance policy. And you can call one up. You can activate 2 kickers if you really want to give Greg Z one more kick, and after that next missed extra point, then he's done. The fact that they just sat and waited and hoped that he would kick himself out of it for the better part of a month is insane. It's so crazy, man.
It's the perfect personification of all the Jets issues. Like I think it might've been last week. I don't know. I do so many shows and podcasts and appearances on things. I forget who I say what with, but I think it was here. We were talking about how the Jets actually give like these guys so much time, like how, it's year 6 for Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh got into year 4 and Zach Wilson got a 3rd season, like all this stuff. And then you add on top of that, oh yeah, by the way, Greg Zuerlein lost them 4 games and is like still maybe kicking for them on Thursday because they haven't. Oh no, he went on IR. I strike that. I'm sorry. He went on IR earlier today, so he is not going to be kicking for them on Thursday. But the point being, they wait too long to do these things and to make these decisions. And you're right. I do think Vrabel goes in there and like shakes whoever's in charge, Woody Johnson or Joe Douglas, and be like, I got to get some sort of kicker in here. But also like, I think that's kind of what the Jets need. I think they need someone who won't let like Aaron Rodgers or Woody Johnson like push them around. Like, no, F you, I'm in charge, and this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, and that's not I did a video about this earlier today, and maybe I didn't articulate it the right way. I think that right now what you're seeing, and it's totally an opinion. This is what we do. This is our 2 cents. And at the end of the day, you give your 2 cents, we go back and forth, and what we think doesn't really matter because we're not on the team or on the coaching staff. But I don't think that Aaron Rodgers has really full trust in the Jets' play calling situation. I think it's pretty apparent because we cannot snap the freaking ball, and that's because Aaron Rodgers is doing some sort of motion, okay, like to the sideline, saying like no, yes, maybe. Then he gets the play, and then he tinkers with it all the way down every single nook and cranny, and then we spent 3 timeouts in the first quarter. So you could blame this, that. It's not Aaron Rodgers' fault, whatever the case may be. That cannot happen. That's not a sustainable way to be. So Aaron Rodgers, look, I understand Todd Downing is not Kyle Shanahan, but when Todd Downing's play calls and when in the motion he added and the play action he added in the first game that he got the play calls, and when they were snapping the ball with 7 seconds left on the play clock instead of one, and his offense was ran with fidelity, the Jets had their best offensive performance of the year. So maybe like, yeah, like you have to let the play caller be the play caller, even if it's not the best play caller. And Aaron Rodgers is elite. He can see things, he can make the adjustments, he can make the audibles, but the way he wants to run his offense is from the freaking Stone Age. And every play we get, it's him dropping off of his back foot, trying to throw a contested catch to a receiver with a guy draped all over him, and that kind of works sometimes because he's good and Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson are good. But dude, you have to have a coaching staff with the balls and the competence to say, look, Aaron, you're a veteran. You're gonna have more say than like freaking Zach Wilson. We get that, but coach, player, that dichotomy has to exist, and it's not right now, and it's to the detriment of the team. You can't tell me that he was treating Matt LaFleur the same exact way he's treating Todd Downing. I don't buy it.
No shot.
Yeah, you got, and that's the thing where it's kind of a referendum on Ulbrich too, because even if Mike Vrabel's not the play caller, I think Mike Vrabel and Aaron Rodgers are having some tough conversations if that's going on. Don't you think?
Oh, 1000%. Like I said, Mike Vrabel is going to let Woody Johnson or Aaron Rodgers come in and push him around. And I think while you can make the case, because we kind of make fun of the Jets having the failed offensive staff in Tennessee, and then you'll go like, well, wasn't that Mike Vrabel's staff? But I mean, two of his other offensive coordinators got hired, though. Arthur Smith was his OC. He got hired for a head coaching job. LaFleur was his OC. He got hired for a head coaching job. So, yeah, the last one might have stunk in Downing, but I think Downing's been actually pretty good. He's been better than what my expectations for him were. And, you know, I'm not saying like this guy's great, give him a head coaching position or anything nuts like that, but I don't know. The Jets went from maybe like the 32nd play caller to like the 24th, and that's a really big difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like going from league worst to mediocre is definitely a huge upgrade. These two comments, I agree with both of them. Matt LaFleur gave Aaron the best situation win MVPs, agreed. And then LaFleur's offense in Green Bay opened up. Like, dude, look what he's doing with Jordan Love. And all due respect to Jordan Love, I'm sure he's a good quarterback. But obviously, I don't know, dude. Guys are way more open when I watch the Packers, and the receivers aren't better than ours. Like, our scheme is not good. Oh, man.
It's frustrating.
I don't think Joe Douglas should make any more moves. I mean, if you're Woody and you don't think he's going to be back, which I really don't know. I could see him. They could beat the Texans tomorrow, and then they could extend Joe Douglas on Friday, and I wouldn't even be shocked anymore. Like, I don't even know what to think. But if you're Woody, don't you have to sit him down and say, hey, either you're going to be back next year or you're not, and here's what I need you to kind of do at the deadline? Because if it's up to Joe Douglas and he doesn't know if he has a job next year, he's not going to do any trades that are going to benefit the Jets on his own accord.
No.
So yeah. What the heck? Like, I don't know. Like, do you think they know? Do you think they've talked about that?
You would, if they were confident, they would. But again, it just goes back to what we were talking about with why I think they're only going to trade one person at the deadline. I really just feel like they're just going to let this thing run its course. Whatever happens over the final, 9-10 games or whatever, and they go their separate ways. I don't think that's the right way to do it, but I just don't see them having that conversation, number one, or number two, us getting the in-season notification, Jets fire, Joe Douglas and whoever's the interim, and he's going to trade a couple of people. I don't have any faith in the direction of where they are right now.
They're in total no man's land. What about Mike McCarthy? I mean, him and Aaron didn't exactly leave on the right foot, number one. And number two, it's looking pretty rough in Dallas this year.
Yeah, I was never really a big Mike McCarthy fan, even when the Jets interviewed him the last time in 2019. I was not on the Mike McCarthy bandwagon. But I feel like it's only gotten worse since there even. And I get it. Like people are going to point to he's won a Super Bowl and he had success with Rodgers, but as you mentioned, it didn't end on the greatest of terms. Um, I think he's honestly just a mediocre head coach. And I know he has the experience, but I would rather go a different direction. I'd be disappointed if it was Mike McCarthy who was brought in here.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy is just a guy who I think the league has passed him by. He was a decent coach at one point. He was the coach when Rodgers won the Super Bowl. Can never take that away from him. But I think he could be valuable to be on a staff. Like if a team hires a first year head coach and he can be on your staff as a kind of mentor role, maybe with some experience, it's fine. But and again, we understand beggars can't be choosers, but he wouldn't give me the warm and fuzzies if the Jets signed Mike McCarthy. I'd almost rather go with an unknown commodity than Mike McCarthy, to be honest.
Yeah, because at this point, I think Mike McCarthy's proven bad. Like,
Yeah,
he's not good. Where the other thing, he very well could not be good, but he might be. So I agree. I'd rather go with the unknown if my choices were unknown person or McCarthy. I'm with you.
Another guy says wouldn't mind Stefanski calling the plays. Well, you'd have to offer him a head coaching gig. It's the only way you can get him here, I would imagine. He's got to be head coaching somewhere next year, right?
Yeah, he's got to, unless he wants to take a year off or something. But I would hire him in a second. I think he was dealt a really crappy hand by the Cleveland Browns. He probably stays there, but if they're dumb enough to move on, which I don't think you could put it past the Browns organization to move on from him, especially with or maybe him wanting to move on because he's handcuffed with having the quarterback Deshaun Watson there. I would want the Jets to be all over that, but does he come here? I don't know, because he probably has other suitors as well.
Right. And especially to the Aaron Rodgers thing makes it complicated because if you're I don't know, if you're a coach, especially an offensive coach, and you're going to come in and it's like 40 whatever 1-year-old 2-year-old Aaron Rodgers, it's kind of a weird dynamic where the perception might be that he's more authoritative than you. I think a team that's maybe bad but has like a top 2 pick and that guy can take his own quarterback of his choosing and build from scratch might be more appealing than the Jets. But we'll have to see how the season ends. Jerry Vodka with the this is very true. We tried every combination and we're just cursed, which is accurate. If you look at what we've thrown on the wall at the quarterback position, really since Favre till now, it's insane that none of it has worked.
Yeah, they've gone the first round pick route, they've gone the mid round pick swing, they've gone the bridge guy, they went with the other veteran in Rodgers, and none of them have worked.
Yeah, it's been three top 5 picks: Sanchez, Wilson, Darnold, 2 veteran bridge guys in McCown and Fitzpatrick, and then 2 older Hall of Famers in Favre and Rodgers, and none of it.
Nope. Can't make it up.
Absolutely great. What about drafting a quarterback? Oh my God. What about drafting a quarterback next year? It might be on the table.
Yeah, I'm really not opposed to drafting a quarterback. I'm not. And even if Rodgers is coming back, and just don't throw him into the fire. Draft someone, sit him behind the starter, and put him in a good position with some talent around him.
Yeah, and for once, can we just at least because man, I think personally, like with our last quarterback that we drafted, I don't think he really had what it took to be an elite like franchise quarterback, regardless. So maybe it wouldn't have mattered. But we gave his defenders a bunch of ammunition because we made a whole bunch of mistakes. Rookie defensive minded head coach, rookie OC, bad offensive line, all, on and on and on. So and you see around the league, you just need a minimum threshold of competence. Like you see Jaden Daniels, and it's like, oh, you give a guy like one good receiver and a decent coach, and you just pick a good quarterback, and it's like boom, and it's immediate returns, and he's good. So it doesn't. I think we're so conditioned that the quarterback has to be in complete perfect circumstances. Like, no, we just need like a decent line and a good coach and one good receiver and pick the right freaking guy.
Pretty much.
Um, that's how a lot of these guys are doing it, man. But yeah, you'll have to consider it. It's not well. I then people get upset because you're writing off Jordan Travis, but I feel like he's kind of a little bit more house money than anything else.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to him to rely on him as being the answer. If he turns into something as a surprise, great, but I'm not banking on him to be the long-term starter here.
Right, right. It's yeah, that would be crazy just to go into what 2025 and say Jordan Travis is going to be the starter. And if you draft a quarterback in the first round, it doesn't necessarily write him off. There are weird circumstances like um Brock Purdy and Trey Lance or
Yep.
like Kirk Cousins and RG3. Like if Jordan Travis really is that good and the quarterback that we take isn't, we'll probably find out. And if the quarterback that we take is really good and Jordan Travis is good too, then shit, man, we got two good quarterbacks when we haven't had one young one in forever. So definitely not against double dipping there. But Matthew, my voice is toast, brother.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm good with putting a bow on this one. It's listen, we got through a lot. There's still a Jets game day tomorrow. We spent
oh
about
yeah,
0 minutes talking about that game as deserved because I don't have very high hopes that they win this game. I think it's over, and next week we maybe are doing mock drafts or something. God knows what, but yeah, it's interesting times for these Jets, and I just don't see it getting better.
I think the game will be close. Now I don't have any faith in them to execute situationally to win it, but I think it will be a close game. I don't think they're going to get boat raced, especially with Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs both out. Yeah, and I think it would be nice if we could pull off the upset just to delay the complete number one meltdowns and just brutal dark scenes, but also the complete offseason talk because you could at least 3-6 you could sip the Kool-Aid, but 2-7, man, you're so toast. So hopefully they get the Jets win. What do you got coming up on the channel these days?
Yeah, so just reacting to whatever news is coming out tomorrow, do the pregame and postgame coverage, and hopefully maybe talk about a Jets win, surprise win. But yeah, keep it locked at Matt O'Leary NY.
Appreciate you guys. Want to hit the thumbs up on the way out, whichever stream you may be watching in, and go Jets.